Hey guys, in today's video, I want to preview the Cincinnati final between Sinner and Alcaraz, the best matchup in tennis right now. But first, since this is my first video about the tournament in Cincinnati, I want to give a shout out to Terence Atman. This guy played 8 matches in Cincinnati, won 7, came through the qualies, and beat Coboli, Fonseca, Fritz, which surprised me a lot. Taylor Fritz is struggling right now. Didn't have a good US hardcourt swing prior to the US Open, and he did have a fantastic grass court season. So since Fritz is a phenomenal hardcourt player, US Open finalist, Indian Wells champion, this is somewhat concerning for Fritz, and one possible explanation for these somewhat poor performances for Fritz's level. I expected him to do a lot better in Washington and in Toronto. Taylor has a lot of points to defend this year, and there's a lot of pressure when you have points to defend. So he was in the US Open final last year. He was also in the ATP Finals final. So I think Taylor might be feeling the pressure a little bit, and it's going to be very difficult for him to defend those points at the US Open. But we'll have to see once the draw comes out to see if he can do it. I think it's going to be very difficult. But in any case, Atman took out Fritz in a tough 3-set match. And I had a feeling that Atman was going to lose the next match to Holger Rune, because when you take out the number 4 player in the world and you're ranked outside of the top 100, it is such a huge accomplishment. There's naturally a little bit of a letdown in the next match because there's a satisfactory feeling that you've achieved a lot. But I've heard some interviews with Terence, and he said that this coaching team told him that the tournament is not over, you got to keep going. And he did keep going, and he beat Holger Rune 2-3, where he played an amazing style of tennis. What I like about French players is that a lot of them play a different style. It's going to be tough to find a lot of French players that play a similar style. And to me, Atman reminds me a little bit of Moutet. But the difference is that Atman can absolutely blast the ball. He hits for sure more aggressive than Moutet, and Moutet can also play very aggressive tennis, but Atman has amazing firepower, especially off the forehand. And he's got that quick rhythm style on the serve that a lot of you guys like, I'm sure. And his serve reminds me a little bit of Henri Leconte, if you guys remember him, a fantastic player, one of my all-time favorites. And he had also a similar quick serve, and he was also a lefty. So Atman came into this tournament ranked 132 in the world, and he's going to be ranked number 66 in the next rankings. And this is such a surprising result for the ATP Tour. This is something that we more commonly see on the WTA Tour. We saw it in Montreal, where Mboko won the tournament, very surprisingly, but we hardly see results like this on the ATP Tour, that somebody outside of the top 100 can make it into a semifinal. Now, again, I was shocked to see how competitive Atman was against Sinner, because I expected Sinner to win comfortably in straight sets. Again, Atman could go in that match without feeling a lot of pressure. He's already achieved something incredible. But generally speaking, when someone like that in the late stage of a big tournament goes up against the top-ranked player, it's usually a very comfortable match. And the semifinal between Sinner and Atman was surely not comfortable for Sinner. It went into a tiebreak in the first set, no breaks. Sinner did play a very good tiebreak. He was serving well. I made a video this week discussing the first serve percentage struggles for Sinner. I recommend that you check that video out. After Sinner's win against Diallo, he went on the practice court at 10 p.m. and was working on his serve. So as good as Sinner is, he still can improve various things in his game, including that first serve. But one thing about Sinner's serve that is quite impressive, that despite him having a low first serve percentage in matches, he does tend to find his serve when it matters the most. And he did find his serve against Mannarino in that second set tiebreak, and he also found his serve in the first set tiebreak against Atman. However, in the first game of the second set, Sinner showed that he still has a mini weakness, and it is that first serve percentage. In this first game of the second set where Sinner was serving went over deuce many times, and Atman didn't have a break point, but he made Sinner's life very difficult in that service game. However, I felt that once Sinner held that long game, he opened up his game and he started playing extremely well. He finally broke Atman's serve, which is incredibly huge and tricky to return. He has a lot of variety. He can blast that serve, but he can also kick it and slice it, and as a lefty, he's very dangerous. So Sinner is up 2-1 in that second set. It's break point on Atman's serve, and Terence hits a slice serve way out wide. Take a look at this picture and see where Sinner is returning this ball from. And from this still shot, you wouldn't think that Sinner would have any chance to win that point, but he actually did convert that point. He hit a phenomenal return off a Atman slice serve, and he ended up winning this point, getting the break. And then from that moment on, Sinner opened up his game, broke Atman again, and then won that second set 6-2. The second semifinal was between Alcaraz and Zverev, and Alcaraz is a new player. What's different about him this year, and I know I'm repeating myself, I've said this many times. In the past, Alcaraz might have lost some of the matches where he wasn't playing well in this stretch where he's going very deep in tournaments that started at Monte Carlo. He's finding out a way to win matches when he's not playing well. In his first match against Jumhur, Alcaraz played a poor set but then found his game, and somewhat similar against Rublev, even though that was a high quality match. I felt Carlos Alcaraz wasted a chance to serve out the third set, let Rublev back into the match, but then with the help of Rublev in that last service game, where Rublev hit some double faults, he ended up getting the victory. But again, Alcaraz is clutch. He's coming through these matches, and he's given himself chances to find his best tennis. And where does Alcaraz find his best tennis? Is towards the late stages of the biggest tournaments. And we're going to get to the preview of the Sinner-Alcaraz final in a second. But let me talk about Zverev real quick. And Zverev has been working incredibly hard after a disappointing Wimbledon tournament where he lost in the first round to Rinder Nesh. He went to the Nadal Academy, and similar to Sinner, I've seen Zverev practice after matches, so he's putting in a lot of work. But in the semifinal against Alcaraz, he succumbed to the conditions. And interestingly, this is something that we've been talking about a lot on the Intuitive Tennis YouTube channel ever since I posted my latest match against Andre, where I struggled with the conditions a lot. And I've read some interesting things on Twitter, and there was an exchange between Ivan Ljubicic and Marty Fish where Ivan said that it's not about fitness, the fact that players are not able to finish matches. It's not fair to send players out to compete in these conditions. And then Marty Fish replied, it's all about fitness. So in my opinion, it's more complex than that, because yes, it is about fitness. If somebody is not fit and goes out in the heat and humidity and plays tennis, the lack of fitness will be a major problem. But let's say somebody is incredibly fit. That player can still have problems in the heat and humidity because it's not all about fitness. There are many factors involved why you see one player struggling with the conditions while the other player is perfectly fine. It can come down to genetics. It can come down to temperature adaptation. Some players are more accustomed to playing in these conditions than others. It can also come down to how much time you have spent in these conditions and many other factors. So I do think it's unfair to say that the players are not fit enough to play in these conditions, because these players that we're watching are unbelievably fit. But from my experience being in Southeast Florida for nearly 20 years, players that train hard in these horrendous conditions down here, and by the way, I don't think professional tennis at that level would be possible right now in Florida. The conditions are that bad. But players that train down here are more accustomed to these type of conditions and are less likely going to struggle. So whatever caught up to Zverev in the semifinal match against Alcaraz is uncertain, but fact is that there was no chance for Zverev to win this one, because towards the middle of that first set, you could start seeing some signs of physical issues. He was going down to his knees and he couldn't breathe. And then once he left the court, the match was pretty much over. But credit to Zverev for finishing this match and not retiring. I think Zverev played well in both of these Masters 1000 tournaments. He had that tough loss against Khachanov, a match that he should have won. He had match point. And he went deep again in Cincinnati. So I think he's going to go into the US Open with a lot of confidence and can possibly make a deep run. But now, let's preview the best matchup ever, or I wouldn't say ever, the best matchup right now, which is Sinner against Alcaraz. And like I said before, I'm very impressed with Carlos Alcaraz because to me, this is a new player. And I think from now on, we're going to start seeing stronger ends of seasons for Alcaraz. Typically, after the US Open, his level drops off quite a bit. And he does have a very tight schedule. After the US Open, he's playing Davis Cup, Labor Cup, and then he's playing a bunch of tournaments after that. And I'm sure there's going to be some exhibitions as well for Carlos. He's played a ton of them last year as well. But fact is that if you look at Carlos's results, with the exception of that US Open title that he won and that Cincinnati final that was really good against Djokovic in 2023, this part of the season after Wimbledon is where we see some sketchy results from Carlos. But I think that's over. I think we're going to see consistent results from Carlos. And I do think we're going to get a lot of big title finals between Sinner and Alcaraz. And I do think that's good for the game. Now, does Carlos Alcaraz have a chance to beat Sinner on a fast Cincinnati surface? A lot of people have said that this court is playing very fast. And you could make the argument that the chances are very low for Alcaraz. This is Sinner's best surface, and I do believe he's going into this match as the favorite. However, as I said in my video from a few days ago, if Sinner's first serve percentage is low, I think this is going to be a great chance for Alcaraz. That first service game in the second set from Sinner against Atman, if Sinner comes out serving like that, Alcaraz will have his chances. On the other hand, Alcaraz is going to have to serve well. In the match against Zverev today, he missed 7 serves in a row. Up 40-15, he hit 3 double faults in a row. And this was at a point in the match where Zverev was already physically struggling. So Carlos Alcaraz cannot come out with glitches like this because he's going to give himself very few chances to win this match. But we know that Carlos Alcaraz finds his best tennis in finals. I think there's a good chance that both of them, or at least one of them, will find their best tennis in the final. And I do think based on the results and the confidence that Sinner will take from the Wimbledon final, I think he's going to come through this one and defend his Cincinnati title. But I do think that Carlos Alcaraz has a chance to win this match. I don't think this matchup is as surface dependent as people think. I think it's always going to be a 50-50 match where both guys can win, even on a fast hard court. Because Alcaraz is the only player on the ATP Tour that has the tools to disrupt the Sinner rhythm. He's done it many times. He's able to come to the net and pressure Sinner that way. He's able to hit drop shots, slices. He's able to hit the ball a little bit higher over the net. Of course, he's going to have less chances to do that on a faster surface versus a slow surface. So as I said before, I think this match will come down on the serve performances from both players. And I do think that Sinner's serve has improved after the Diallo match. And for that reason, I do think he's going to come through this final.